Hello and welcome back. So in this video we should be able to wrap up the OBJ exporter. We've got everything coded out. As you saw in the last video though, when we put it all into action, looked like some odd anomalies at the very end as far as the actual faces went. It looked like some sort of normals issue. But overall, Lee, I must admit, I was very impressed that you were able to hit, run, and things did manage to get exported and brought back in. So that was cool.
Yeah, it actually worked without exploding.
It worked
even though
without having to hunt down any other troubles. But we did have some anomalies going on, as you can see here, with what appears to be normals. So, Lee, if you want to spend just a minute and talk about what it is that you found while we were off camera, and then go ahead and adjust that real quick.
Right. Well, it's not going to be so much real quick. It's going to be basically just turning off features.
That's real quick.
Yeah.
Just saying.
What is happening is when I was doing my development on the R&D,
the terrain, and just to say this real quick, the one that everyone saw in session 9 when you were demonstrating it, as far as what we were working towards.
Right. That are what was called the terrain baker before I called it the terrain exporter. But inside of that demo, there's a class that is called the terrain processor. And the terrain processor modifies some of the functionality of the FBX importer built into the Unity editor. We haven't written that yet. That's actually going to happen in the next file. Well, in the next video. But what was happening is it was masking this issue, so I never saw this when I was doing the R&D. So when this popped up, that caused me to try to figure out what was going on and sort it out. So that led to some trial and error and experimentation and pulling out the tangential debug display from several sessions back when we were talking about tangents and normals, so I could figure out what was going on. And because at first I thought maybe I wasn't flipping the normals correctly, and did a lot of testing on that, and it was all correct. So got the tangential display going so I could see what my normals were doing, and realized that what was happening was that the FBX importer is bringing in all of my normals from the file like you would expect it, but it's bringing it in as hard-edged faces. So what is happening is that if I take one of these patches and zoom in, it is creating 8 vertices at this point and 4 vertices at this point.
So you're getting a vertex normal for each edge, basically, at each vertex.
Yes, and so that's what is giving us this very faceted appearance. So that got me to looking at the OBJ and trying to set up smoothing groups and a couple of different options, trying to override that functionality so we could import a nice smooth mesh using the normals that I provided. But for some reason, the FBX importer says, no, you've got normals. For each of these vertices, I'm going to make sure you've got a nice, crisp, sharp edge at each one of those vertices, which is not what I want. So it was driving me crazy for the better part of, an hour or so?
Yeah, about an hour now.
Yeah, so, I like it when that happens. And unfortunately, when I import, I have no option of adjusting the smoothing angle. So I can either, not import normals, I can calculate normals, or I can import normals. So I don't get a whole lot of choices here. So what I found was that if I go back to our FBX exporter here, and I go to our normals, and I comment this out. So basically, we're not saving any of the normals. We're just saving vertices and UVs. And then I go back to Unity and run. Give it a sec to build all the patches. And we get some nice, smoother results. So I'm going to go with this for now. It's not perfect. We still have seams in it, so this isn't the nice calculated out normals that we would hope to have. But again, we also don't have tangents either. So what I'm going to do is when we get our persistent data in place, I'm going to include remapping the normals as well as the tangents into the part of the pipeline that will happen just before we export into our final asset bundle. So because I'm going to have to do it with tangents anyways, it's just an additional step to load in the normals as well, and that'll reassign it. So we'll bypass the entire normal part of the operation in the OBJ export and import process. Because if the FBX importer is just not going to play, we just work around it. But one of the other things that we're going to do in the next video is we're going to go through and modify the FBX importer so we can determine if normals are going to be imported or calculated, whether or not tangents are going to be calculated, whether or not we're going to include animation and materials as part of the prefab that is constructed. So we'll be able to turn this stuff off and calculate all of our normals and tangents by hand as part of the import process, so, as well as get rid of those materials and animation. It'll clean up our pipeline, and it, like I said, it will just be one additional step that we'll have to deal in a later video once we get persistence done, but it's not the end of the world by no means.
Okay, well with that, that is going to wrap up this video, and we'll see you guys in the next.